The War for Mansoul, a John Bunyan classic, as told by Ethel Barrett. And for this section in particular, I have brought out my favorite way to receive coffee, because it says what needs to be said. Chapter 7. Shaddai's army approaches. Forerunners, harbingers of tidings. 4 of Shaddai's divisions sent ahead to break the ice and pave the way, 40,000 strong. The first division was under the great captain I need to learn how to pronounce this word, Boanerges, so called because he was a powerful orator. We'll decide on Boanerges. Okay? The first division was under the great captain Boanerges, so called because he was a powerful orator. His standard bearer was Mr. Thunder, who carried a black banner and had 3 burning thunderbolts on his shield. Then came Captain Conviction, the great prover of guilt. Indeed, no guilt could stand up under his stern look. Mr. Sorrow was his standard bearer, and he carried pale colors, and the shield was an open book of the law. So apparently when I did the introduction and I read the cast of characters, I was mistaken. These are separate individuals. Next, Captain Judgment. His middle name was Punishment. His standard bearer, Mr. Terror, who carried a red banner and a picture of a fiery furnace on his shield. Captain Execution brought up the rear, with Mr. Justice carrying the banner and wearing a shield showing Shaddai's justice carried out, a tree with no fruit, and an axe laying at the roots. 40,000 strong they were, with orders to offer Mansoul peace terms at first. But each captain knew that if they would not listen to peace terms and turn to King Shaddai, Mansoul would have to be taken by force. On they marched, colors flying, helmets gleaming in the sun. A beautiful and awful sight to behold. 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 strong, on business for the king. The people of Mansoul saw them coming in the distance, their glittering armor sparkling like jewels. The Mansoulians came out of their houses and called out to each other and stood on the city walls to see better. So gallant a company, so bravely accoutred, so excellently disciplined. The word spread and the crowds on the walls grew. Diabolus saw them too, from his castle. He stared for a while through his field glasses, his face contorted in a horrible grimace. Then, without a word, he handed the glasses to Apollyon, who was standing near. 4 divisions, Apollyon said. They look as though they mean business. Yes. Diabolus motioned impatiently for field glasses, took them, and looked again. They look good. There's judgment and execution, convictions there, too. Good thing old man Conscious is in the coma. Who's the other one? There are 4. Boanerges. He's the chap we'll have the most trouble with right now. Terrific orator, voice like thunder. Scare wickedness out of anybody. What do you think they're going to do? Well, they didn't come all this way for nothing. I think they'll pitch their tents and entrench themselves one way or another in a position of strength, and probably assault your gate. They look good, Apollyon said again. They look too good, said Diabolus. Those fool townsfolk might regret everything I ever taught them and let them in on impulse. What should we do? The main thing is to keep them from hearing Boanerges. Diabolus stared a moment longer, then whirled around and started for his bell cord. The immediate thing to do is to get them down from the city walls. They shouldn't stand there staring. That display is pretty impressive. He pulled the cord. I'll get them back down and into the market square. Are you going to mobilize them? No, just talk to them for the present. Then we'll see. Down in the market square, Diabolus addressed them with just the right amount of feigned concern, patience, amused tolerance, and a wee bit of sternness. It was most effective. His voice had not been so oily since he had first descended upon them in the form of a dragon. "Gentlemen, my beloved friends," he began, "I cannot but chide you a little for your uncircumspect action in going out to gaze on that great and mighty force entrenched outside the town. That display of banners and glittering armor you've been admiring is not there for your amusement. Do you know who they are? Where they come from? What they're up to?" They were silent, waiting. "You should know. I told you long ago. They are part of the very army that Shaddai has sent to destroy you." He paused for effect, just long enough. Then his voice rang out. "When you first saw them, why didn't you fire the beacons and alarm the town?" They shifted uneasily, stole glances at the city wall and back at him. "Why do you suppose I have commanded a watch, doubled the guards? Why have I armed you from head to foot? Why have I put you through training to make you as hard as iron with hearts like millstones, so you might go out like a company of innocents to gaze at them?" They stood still, mesmerized. "No," he shrieked, "to resist them." This had such an effect that it was almost as though they took a step backward as one man. Diabolus knew just when to shift moods. He played them like an organ. His voice went back down to pianissimo. John Bunyan knew what that word meant. I do not. "I will rebuke you no further. I will chide you gently. However, let me never see such actions again. Let not one of you so much as show his head over the wall of the town of Mansoul without an order obtained from me. You have heard me. Now do as I tell you, and if you do, I can dwell here securely with you, and I can take care of not only myself, but your safety and honor also." They were all silent for a moment. Then, "That is all," he said quietly, and turned with his warlords and officials and started back to the gate. It was far more effective than an impassioned ending might have been. "You left them stunned and gaping," said Beelzebub later, back in the castle. "They are not stunned and gaping now," said Apollyon. He was standing by one of the great windows, gazing down into the streets. "They seem to have panicked." "Exactly," said Diabolus calmly. "When they listen to me, they turn against Shaddai. They can't trust us both at once. It wouldn't make sense." Just sounds drifted up from the crowds milling about in the streets. "What are they saying?" said Diabolus. "Something about the men that turned the world upside down have come here also," said Apollyon. "And destroyers of our peace, or words to that effect," said Legion. "This I like," said Diabolus. "This I like very well. This is just as I would have it. If we can just hold them there, let Shaddai's—" He stopped. The round, clear notes of a trumpet came over the wall from the direction of Eargate. They listened silent until it had died away. Before I go too much further, I thought there was going to be a handy stopping point. There isn't. There was a very brief reference to the accusation against the Apostle Paul when he went to the pagan nations, and what you're hearing about something about the men who turned the world upside down have come here also, and destroyers of our peace, or words to that effect. Those are all the charges that were brought against Paul that caused the riots that sought Paul's death for preaching the gospel. Anyway, the round, clear notes of a trumpet came over the wall from the direction of Eargate. They listened, silent, until it had died away. "Summons for a hearing," said Legion. "That's Boanerges." I forgot how I said I was going to pronounce that. "That's Boanerges' trumpeter. Name's Take Heed What You Hear," said Diabolus. They waited. "Anybody on the wall?" said Diabolus after a while. "No," said Apollyon. "Nobody's going to answer." "As I was saying," said Diabolus, "if we could just hold them there, then let Shaddai's captains take the town if they can." "But isn't a confrontation eventually inevitable?" said Legion. "Probably," said Diabolus. "But I still have a few tricks up my sleeve." He pulled a bell cord. "What now?" they wanted to know. "Remember old Unbelief?" "Who?" "Unbelief, one of my aldermen. Stout fellow." "What does he have to do with this?" He, said Diabolus, is one of the tricks. I've had my eye on him for some time. I'm going to appoint him mayor and replace Lord Lusings temporarily. Mayor? Yes. He has always impressed me as a good man to use in an emergency. Well? Well, I think we're about due for one, said Diabolus, and he pulled the bell cord again. Chapter 8. War. Diabolus was right. The emergency was not far off. Captain Boanerges' trumpeter returned and reported that Mansoul would not answer the summons. The captain was grieved, but bade the trumpeter to go to his tent. A short time later the summons to a hearing was repeated. Again Mansoul would not answer. Then the captains and other field officers called a council of war to consider what might be done. They decided to try one more summons. The third summons was louder than the others. It seemed to demand an answer. Sure enough, Will-be-Will's head appeared over the wall. "Who are you?" he cried. "Why are you making such a hideous noise? And what do you want?" "I come in the name of Captain Boanerges and your former king, the great King Shaddai, whom you have rebelled against. My master the captain has a special message for this town. Will you hear it peaceably?" "I'll deliver your message to my master Diabolus and see what he has to say." "The message is not for Diabolus. It's for Mansoul, in the name of the king." "I'll deliver your message to the town, then." "Captain Boanerges himself will be here to receive your answer," the trumpeter cried. And the interview was ended for the time being. Each went back to his master and reported what had happened. When the time was up and the trumpet sounded again, not only Captain Boanerges, but the other captains and the entire 4 divisions were outside Eargate. Everybody who was anybody was on the city wall. Captain Boanerges stepped forward. "I desire to speak with your mayor," he shouted. There was a slight hesitation, then a brief hubbub. Then Unbelief stepped forward and boldly glared at the captain. Boanerges started in surprise. "That is not the mayor," he shouted. "Where's Lord Mayor Understanding? I would deliver my message to him." Diabolus could keep quiet no longer. "My dear captain," his voice was dripping with mock patience, "you have summoned Mansoul to surrender to your king no less than 4 times. I don't know who gave you this authority, and I don't intend to dispute that now. I merely ask what you are up to, or don't you know?" Captain Boanerges paid him the crowning insult. He ignored him as if he were not there, and addressed himself to the townsmen. He stood by the shield with the thunderbolts on it, while his black banner rippled in the breeze behind him, and gave them the message again, to submit to King Shaddai. Then Captain Conviction stepped forward. "Hear, O Mansoul," he cried. "It is your wisdom. It will be your happiness to surrender to Shaddai. You cannot claim you have not sinned. Your very rebellion against him is your sin. All of your doings will testify against you." "Stop badgering them," cried Unbelief. Conviction ignored him. "Shaddai is reasoning with you through us," he cried to Mansoul. "Does he have the need of you that you have of him? No, no. He is merciful, and will not have you die. But turn to him and live. Do not overstay the time of mercy. Listen now." Then Captain Judgment stood forth. "Do not underestimate the power of King Shaddai," he said. "He is able to lay you at his feet. O Mansoul, he is holding out his golden scepter to you. Will you provoke him to shut his gates against you instead? Don't refuse his mercy now. He is preparing his throne for judgment later." Diabolus trembled. Some saw. Most did not notice. Captain Execution stepped forward. "Every tree that does not bear good fruit," he said, "is hewn down and cast into the fire. The axe is first laid to your root by way of threatening. Ultimately, it must be laid at your root by way of execution. Between these 2 is required your repentance. Shaddai's patience does not last forever. Your rebellion has brought this army to your walls. What makes you think Shaddai cannot carry out his words?" There was silence. Then some murmuring started in the crowd and grew louder until a few braver spokesmen called out, "Time! The Mansoulians want a little more time to consider their answer." The request was timid. It was obvious that the Mansoulians had no leaders among themselves. "We'll give you time on one condition," shouted Boanerges, "that you throw Mr. Illpaws over the wall to us. If you hesitate a moment with him in town, you are lost. Now, over the top." This threat galvanized Diabolus into action. Lose Illpaws? Never. He forgot his momentary fright. He leaped forward. "Give these villains an answer," he ordered his officers. "Speak out. You, Unbelief, you first." Unbelief was ready. "You have camped against us, but where you came from we don't know, and your promises of mercy and threats of judgment from this king you say sent you here, make a pretty tall story." This is the Pharisees, in case you didn't catch on to that. "We do not believe you. We're not afraid of you. We defy you and your summons. Now get you gone, bag and baggage, before our weapons start flying from the city walls against you." Diabolus turned to Wilbuwell, or maybe not the Pharisees at this point, it would be the kings and rulers that the prophets were speaking to. Wilbuwell swallowed hard. He was desperate. Diabolus turned to Wilbuwell. Come, he hissed. "Wilbuwell, speak out! Speak!" Wilbuwell swallowed hard. He was desperate. Yes," he said. "That is right. All that he says. We have heard your demands and your threats. We're not afraid of you. We defy you and your summons. Besides, we prefer to remain as we are, and when you give you 3 days to get out." For the first time, the horrible suspicion that he might be a yes-man crossed his mind, but there wasn't time to dwell on it. Mr. Forgetgood, the Newtown recorder, was speaking without prompting. "Gentlemen," he said, "we have answered your rough and angry demands with mild and gentle words, and we have given you leave to depart quietly as you came. Now take your kindness and be gone. We might have come out with force against you and given you a bit of trouble, but as we love quiet and ease ourselves, we do not wish to hurt or molest others." For some strange reason, the townspeople took that as a signal to shout for joy, as though a great victory had already been won. They began to ring bells and make merry, and even danced upon the walls. Diabolus and his warlords exchanged smug glances. "They did a good job of it," said Beelzebub. "Couldn't have done better myself," said Diabolus. "You had very little to say," said Legion. "I believe in democracy," said Diabolus. "Upon occasion, sometimes it's better to let them speak for themselves." They started back to the castle. Lord Mayor Unbelief went back to his place, and Mr. Forgetgood, the recorder, to his. But Lord Wilbuwell stayed behind to do his homework. He took special care that the gates were secured with double guards, double bolts, and double locks and bars, especially Eargate. He shouted orders and huffed and puffed and paced about, and still not satisfied, he made old Mr. Prejudice, one of the angry old men of the town, captain of the Eargate with 60 deaf men under him. This last thing done, he went back to the top of the tower over Eargate to check 2 of Mansoul's great guns. One was called High Mind, and the other Heady. These had been cast in the castle by Diabolus' founder, whose name was Mr. Puffup, and Mansoul set great store by them. Then Wilbuwell made his way wearily back to his home. One could not be too zealous. Behind him the merriment on the wall grew noisier. There was, strangely, something ominous about it. Wilbuwell shivered in the twilight. Then, through the shouts and ringing of the bells and the noisemakers, he heard it. The battle cry of Shedai's captains. Lord Lustings heard it, and old Unbelief heard it, and Mr. Forgetgood too heard it, from their houses. And Diabolus and his warlords heard it from the castle. The cry rang loud and clear through the twilight air, and penetrated every barracks, every castle, every home. Ye must be born again. Wilbuwell turned up the collar of his cloak, and hurried toward his home, repelled by the words, and a little frightened, though he would not admit it. The war was on.